cutting is my second favourite part after printing. So cutting is the bit where it's very mindful. You'll sort of just really relax while you're doing it. Okay, I've got my template to the side of me here. It's just off camera, just off shot. But I've decided to cut the boat first, and I'm just following these lines around as a continuous solid line, and I'm breaking it up a little bit. Maybe I'll stop there. A bit like I might do with a pencil. And you can see the speed I'm going at. I'm going to do the circle here, turning lino and keeping the tool fairly static there. I'm going to do some detail on the boat. This would be an option here. You could do, your boat could be a different shape. You could draw your boat completely differently. Just put some detail on top of the boat there. Okay, the boat is in position. The next thing I'm going to tackle is the liver buildings. And you can see, hopefully, as I'm doing this, I'm going down. And as I go down, or across is the way it looks on the camera, but as down the liver building walls, I'm just flicking up at the end. So I want them to be quite solid Art Nouveau geometric shapes at the top, but then feather down to the bottom because they're going to intermingle, because this is an abstract design, intermingle with the water at the bottom. And if you do slip like this, my tools just sit there. Don't worry about it. I mean, it might not even print. I'm just going to style that in to a different line here. I'm going to try and just cover it up by going over it with a different mark. It was so faint you might not even notice it, but just in case you do, and just to show you that if you do a mark that you're worried about, that's how you can cover it up. So I've done... And these half moon, kind of orange segment shaped windows, you can either leave them as a line like this, or you could cut them out. I quite like to have some areas completely cut out on my lino designs, just to contrast with, there's going to be quite a lot that's going to be printed in colour, so it's nice to have a balance. And these marks here, this is a new mark. So I'm just going to go along. So I've just made a small line. And then I'm just going to put teeth. And rip them away. And the same facing this way. I'm going to do it in reverse this time. I'm going to cut my teeth, lots of little lines close together, and then I'm just going to do one long line along where all the edges are sticking up, and it'll make quite a nice sort of teeth claw mark almost, and it looks a little bit like the windows. Having done the majority of the liver building now, I'm just going to move on to the wheel. Always tricky cutting circles. For this circle that I'm just, these, I guess you call them concentric circles, I'm trying to make the line less uniform and solid. Do you remember we had a go at that in the practice? So I'm trying to just scratch the surface and then leave parts of each circle missing, and it will just make it appear more painterly, a bit more drawn like in appearance. I guess what you're trying to avoid is having exactly the same thickness and depth of line over your whole composition, because it just becomes a little bit boring, and there's just no real depth to it. So it's just trying to introduce a little bit of depth. Oops. These ones I'll do in this direction because they're coming. And it'll give it a little bit of a sense of movement. Don't forget the little cars on the top. Also, don't forget as you go to bend your lino. I wouldn't scratch it with your nails, you don't want to make any extra scratches because it is super soft, but definitely you want to be making sure you're pulling out any of those burrs, loose ends. Next I'm going to tackle the cathedral, and I'll start with the spire. Okay, and just as it's rounded at the base, I'm not going to close that line up. You can see I've left a gap, which would just, I guess in lino terms, signify where light hits something or shade hits something. Not all a definite outline of everything you can be seen all the time. Some mark making here. You can see I'm turning my lino all kinds of directions as I'm cutting it. Just little geometric triangles and other kind of shapes which are gonna just resemble parts of a stained glass window. So notice on this section here where I'm cutting out these bits of windows, I've just decided to freestyle. I'm not following the template exactly, so I'm just putting my own creative slant now onto this section, and I'm gonna just do some V's, drawing on all those marks that we learnt in the mark making practice section earlier. Starting to look great already. Next I'm going to tackle the radio tower. I hope you're enjoying it. And I hope you can see what I mean when I say it's relaxing and mindful. So for this one I've drawn it super straight, super uniform, and I did that on purpose because it is quite a uniform building, and I wanted it to be a bit of a contrast to some of these rounded, more sketchy lines that I've got around. It was going to be in the bottom and around the wheel. I'm just going to draw the viewing window in the middle. Just going to cut out the hole. And you can either leave it like that or you can choose to take that area away. I'm going to take it away because I'm wanting to balance the areas of white that I'm going to have with the areas of inked area. Just refer back to the final design. It's nice. You might want it to have more colour, but I like to have a nice balance of white on my final design. And now for the area surrounding the boat and the waves, which you can see I wanted to play on this positive negative and have the boat really stand out with an area of white around it. And I achieved this by cutting deep into the edge of the boat and feathering upwards as best I can, because I'm going to try and blend these marks. I'm going to cut them haphazard like this, like scratchy wave marks, and there will be some, as with this, some bigger waves down here, and in fact I'm just going to put a couple of those, careful with your fingers, to suggest the water, the River Mersey in fact. Turn it as you're doing it if it's easier. So I want some bigger ones that blend into some smaller ones. So play with the amount of pressure that you apply with your tool. Okay, and just another tip for you now, if you're wanting to butt up against this line, you could turn your lino tool on its side slightly and then just carefully cut away that area. And you'll just get a sharper line up against it. and perhaps have some of your waves coming off the edge of the lino, just from a design point of view. And you can see how it's so similar to woodcut when you start to really, you know, focus your cutting away into one area. Turning my lino tool on the side again here. And in this section here, I'm just going to blend, so as faint as I can, almost like I'm trying to draw feathers. I'm just going to blend. Going back to what I said earlier about you can't produce shading, so there's a restriction on the range of marks that you can create, and you just have to work with positive and negative. It's entirely up to you how you create that water, how much you want to take away, how much you want to leave there. But what you can do, what I will say to you is, if once you've done what you think is what is a finished print plate for you, when you do your first print, you could do it on test paper, and if there's anything in areas that come out printed that are not quite right for you, just rinse it off and come back. Okay, I think I'm just about done. There's just a couple more things I want to do. One is I want some indication that this is a sky, maybe a nighttime, so it'll really add to this feeling of it being maybe a black cityscape, nighttime lit up cityscape. And the way I'm going to just do my stars, I don't want anything too solid or definite, so I'm literally just going to pick at the sky. It's almost like just a texture that I want in the background. And I don't know whether they'll print or not. Maybe they won't. We'll see. But you could try that. Or a moon. Oops, that was a slip. I slipped. There you go. I've done one kind of solid star just above the Liver building. And so, yeah, 2 points. The one other last point that I want to make is I like to, there's just a tip, trim around the edge so that you've got to think about the edge of your final design too, and I like mine to be organic and not straight. And there we go. One Liverpool Cityscape lino plate. I hope it goes well for you, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in part 2.